a lot of times what I've noticed in my life, and I've noticed in a lot of other people's lives, especially I think in just an American culture, puts spiritual beliefs to the side for a second, American culture, but then also in the Christian realm, right? We many times can kind of go through like cruise control in our life, where our priorities are being comfortable, our priorities are making money, our priorities are just hanging out with friends and family, and although those things aren't bad, sometimes we're actually missing the greater eternal purposes, right? And so what ends up happening, and I've seen it happen to me countless times and other people, is a lot of times something happens in life and it wakes us up. And what happens is whatever, like, we're a big believer that, God takes evil and turns it into good, right? Like, is God the cause is everything that bad to happen? No, I don't believe so. He does allow things to happen, but what he does is he does take those as opportunities to grow us, prepare us, teach us something, help us, show that he loves us. And so a lot of times what happens is, as we're on cruise control, that event, that thing hits us, and it kind of like wakes us up, right, out of hibernation in a sense, right? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where we're just been cruising. So for instance, if you had a death, right, like that somebody close to you passed away in your life, or if you think about the war right now with Russia and Ukraine, where people are like, whoa, and it kind of just like reestablishes something in your mind and kind of wakes you up for a second, or 9/11 from years ago, or even COVID had that for a lot of people, right? So all of these things, whether they're major worldwide events or a life event, can sometimes wake you up. And I know that's happened to me, where I would lose a family member, or I'd lose a friend, and I'd go, man, what am I doing with my life? Like, am I honoring that individual? God, am I honoring you? Am I prioritizing you? And we start to reassess our priorities, but and God will kind of start to speak to us. But then what ends up happening is, from what I've noticed, is after a while, we go back in cruise control. We go back to sleep. And so that's really what, as we kind of, all three of us, Matt, myself, and Brennan, were kind of discussing this and what we wanted to talk about today. That's what we were kind of just wrestling back and forth with, is just this thought of, yes, we know this happens. And yes, God uses those things to go like, hey, you really need to prioritize blank. You really need to, and then we start to do it. And then before you know it, we like, I think it's in, I want to say, oh man, it's in Hebrews or Romans. I'll find the scripture when one of you guys are talking, but it talks about like, be careful with your faith so that you don't drift away, right? So we began to drift away in complacency, and then all of a sudden, we go right back to cruise control again until another event. So really, this discussion for today is, hey, if God has been speaking to you the last few years and using the pandemic, using, some tragedy that might have happened in your life or in somebody else's life, or even this war that is very sad, and we'll make sure to pray for everyone in Ukraine and just that entire area at the end of our podcast. Are we going to stay awake? Or are we just going back to sleep?